Okay, Buccaneers are getting ready for a big game this coming Sunday in the Motor City. We're going to talk about all that coming up in just a minute. Gators are doing some things off the field and getting ready for their season as well. We'll talk about that and some interesting news out of Alabama. That's all coming up on the very special Thursday night edition of the Animal Football Insider from a very, very cold confines of West Des Moines, Iowa. Be right back here in just a minute.
Welcome to Animal Football Insider, your weekly look into the happenings of your Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Florida Gators, and all things related to football. And now, from West Des Moines, Iowa, here's your host, The Animal.
Of the Animal Football, and welcome to this edition of the Animal Football Insider, coming at you from a very cold confines of West Des Moines, Iowa, where the snow is falling down. It feels like Christmas, but it's January, so what do you expect during this time of year? But always it's a pleasure to have you as well, and welcome to the show as always. I think we got an interesting, decent show tonight. We were gonna have one of the greatest Buccaneer fans of all time. God, what's his name? I forget, but so excited about today. The name kind of skips my mind, but one of the better fans in all of football. He was unable to join me tonight. I'm gonna figure out what his name was here in just a second. But he was unable to join me tonight, and Big Nasty, that's what we're talking about. Big Nasty, unable to join us for tonight. Last minute thing, but he'll join. He'll probably be on probably here in the near future. Talk about the Bucks, what's going on with them. Lauren Meadows going to join me a little bit later on. What's happening with the Florida Gators and everything else that's happening with football, including the Florida Gators, including an interesting conversation that we want to talk about, something I came across earlier this week. And it kind of, raised an eyebrow with me. Um, and we'll get into all that a little bit later on. But, you know, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Pewter, no, that one. No, here one right here. Pewter Power Boys. Right here behind me on this side right here. Even got the hat on. And for them, they played at home last Monday night against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a game in which the Eagles have not been doing well. They won six. They've lost six of the last 7 games. People didn't know what to expect with this Buccaneer team, but you know what the Buccaneers did? They came out, took care of business. They won the game 32-9 over the Philadelphia Eagles, and now they go to the Motor City this week to take on the Detroit Lions in a game Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Now, for the Buccaneers, since it's a playoff game, more than likely they have to get into Detroit Friday afternoon. Now, the weather's kind of bad, and so we're going to have to figure out what's going to happen as they get ready for the game. But the weather, as far as the game goes, it's not going to have any effect on the game. But don't ask a reporter that question. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, is this Todd Bowles, head coach of the Buccaneers, he was in his Monday press conference, and the person talking, the reporter asking the questions, asked Todd Bowles the following question: do you think that the weather will have any adverse effect on what's going to happen in the game on Sunday with all the snowy conditions? And to Todd Bowles' response, Well, we're playing in a dome. Playing in a dome. Remember that. They were playing in a dome. Oh man. Hey, look. By the way, if you have comments and you want to join in the fun, log on to my personal Facebook page and make your comments. I also have another page called Animal Football Insider that you can look for online, and you post on that too. Maybe we'll get to see your comments as well. Just like my good friend Tracy Pointer says, "Go Bucks!" You know, Tracy, thanks for joining me tonight. Hope you're here for the whole hour and got questions. Bring them on. We'd be more than happy to talk about it. But you know what? As I said, things got screwed up. We were going to have Big Nasty on tonight. Unable to join me. Had a last minute commitment. I get that. And so, I guess I'm going to be rambling on for a little bit till my good friend Lauren Meadows comes on. We'll talk about anything that's happening. And by the way, if you have any questions regarding the Buccaneers or any other things regarding the NFL, please bring them on. I'm open. It's not just about the Bucs and the Gators, although this is my main forte. I'm always open to all aspects of sports, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But when this season started, we were talking about a team, a guy like some guy named Baker Mayfield really coming on. I figure a guy like Baker Mayfield maybe will last 2-3 games before Kyle Trask will get the start. And I thought, okay, this guy's gonna be halfway decent. We're gonna see Kyle Trask come in. Lo and behold, Baker Mayfield comes on, and he just lights it up like crazy. Now, it's not the most exciting offense that you'll see. Okay. It's not the most glamorous offense that you're going to see. But here's what you're going to see, folks. You're going to see a team that plays to the very end and going to do everything they can. Think about it. They've won 6 of their last 7 games. It hasn't been pretty. It hasn't been fantastic. But it's like if you saw what was it, the great it was a Christian movie, and Facing the Giants. And there's one epic scene where the coach is the kicker has lost all his confidence. And like the coach says, he says, it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to look great. The biggest job is get it over the goalposts. Get the job done. And that's what this Buccaneer team has been doing. Damn be all to hell. You can talk all you want how crappy this Buccaneer team has been looking, people. So I'm trying to get my headphones set up here. But when you look at it, what you're looking at is a very exciting Buccaneer team. It's a very exciting Buccaneer team that's winning games. I mean, I was hoping to get this information here. Let's see here. Where's it at? Can't find it here. Hang on here. I mean, they won the game for P6 Monday night 32-9. In a game that, I mean, quite frankly, was pretty damn exciting if you stop and think about that. I mean, I'm trying to find, because I'm gonna get the stats from the game. They're not showing it. But I mean, if you look at the way the Baker Mayfield played, I mean, the man I mean, he just played an exciting game. 32-9 was the final score. in the game. Let's see here. I'm trying to get some stats from that game. Team stats. I mean, the Buccaneers had 23 first downs. Was able to convert on 6 of 14. The Bucs had 69 plays to 53. 426 total yards. The Eagles 276. Um, and for Baker Mayfield, 22 of 36, 337 yards on the night, and 3 touchdowns on the game. Wow. And Rashad White, 18 carries, 72 yards. K. Dotton, 8 receptions for 89 yards on the game. I mean, uh, let's see here. Yeah, he led the team in receptions. Dave Moore had 2 receptions for 66 yards and scored on the 44 yard pat reception to get the touchdown. I mean, on defense, Jamel Dean, 9 solo tackles. Khalid Kancey had a half a sack along with Vita Vea. And then Greg Gaines had a sack. And Joe Tryon Sharenka, he had a sack for 3 sacks on the night. All around great performance by this Buccaneer team. And, I thought to myself as I was watching the game, I was thinking to myself, you know what? Is it possibility that this team's been sandbagging to the playoffs? Playoffs? I mean, think about it for just a minute. This team has looked horrible during the course of the season. I mean, they've had some great games. They were able to get by thanks to some great play by the defense. And then what happened with the Buccaneers, I mean, was just outstanding on Monday night. Oh no, by the way, this just in. I don't want to hear anything on my timeline on Twitter. I don't want to hear anything on my Facebook page to say the top bulls should be fired. You can pretty much get the hell out of here with those comments because that ain't going to happen. To see what this Buccaneers team has done and the way they have done it, it's like these are a bunch of guys that bring their lunch pails to work and they get the job done. They're said a working man is like a working man class team that doesn't have a lot of players with all-star caliber, even though you have Lamonte David, Joe Trionka Sharonka, Antoine Winfield, not to mention the quarterback in Baker Mayfield, a great running back in Rashad White, offensive lineman headed by Cody Mock. I mean, this is a Buccaneer team of nobodies that is slowly but surely getting the job done. Comment on my Facebook page. Love for you to get your thoughts on things that are going on during the course of the season. See if Dave Murchison want to come on and see if Mogi would like to come on for just a few minutes. See if Dave Murchison wants to come on my show, talk a little bit about Buccaneer football and what's been happening. And of course, Barnstormers, they're getting ready for their season. They're going to report to camp after the Super Bowl. So that's Barnstormers should have a very, very interesting season. But what about the other teams? that involved. You got the Packers. I mean, let's see here. Let's see here. Um, the playoffs, the way they're set up for this weekend. Um, let's see here. Playoffs and the schedule. And by the way, let's go to the schedule real quick for the weekend. You have Saturday, Houston taking on Baltimore at 3:30 on ABC, followed by the Packers at San Francisco at 7:15. And by the way, I'm not sure about this, but I do believe that if Buccaneers beat Detroit and San Francisco defeats Green Bay, it's very possible that the Buccaneers could be hosting another playoff game next Sunday against the 49ers. Now, I would imagine that'd be a late start. But, let's just worry about what's happening this weekend. Houston be at Baltimore 3:30. Packers at Green Bay at 7:15. That'll be on Fox. Sunday, the first game will be Tampa Bay at Detroit. That's at 2 o'clock Central time. And then after that, Kansas City will be at Buffalo. I'm looking forward to the Kansas City Buffalo game. It's a rematch. Mahomes against Josh Allen. you know, um, this is Patrick Mahomes' first game on the road, and as you watch it and you look at it, how would Mahomes handle things on the road in a playoff game, especially against Buffalo? That's a game that's probably more intriguing in some ways than the other games this weekend. And as we look at this weekend, ask yourself this one very important question. Who has a lot riding on this weekend? You tell me in the answer of my Facebook page who has the most on the line for this weekend. Is it Lamar Jackson? Is it Stroud of the Texans? Who I have a complaint about, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Is it Jordan Love? Is it the San Francisco quarterback? Is it Josh Allen? Is it Patrick Mahomes? I think it always might be Lamar Jackson. And a lot of people ask why. Because Lamar Jackson is getting paid a lot of money to play in these big games. Lamar Jackson has a lot riding on it at home against the Texans. Baltimore's an excellent team. I like the way their defense plays. But C.J. Stroud and the way that offense has played has been amazing. And speaking of C.J. Stroud, I have a bone to pick. And that is specifically with the broadcast people of NBC. Now, how this operates is this. After a game is done, the communications people for their teams will get what they feel like the most MVP, and they'll take them over to the national broadcast, and they want to interview the guy right away. I get that. That's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. And during the broadcast, during that interview, C.J. Stroud, gave praise to God and his Lord and Savior, and gave all that acclamation and everything, which is great. I think it's great for C.J. Stroud to do that. I think he has a great platform that he's presenting, and I recognize that. But then what happens is, and nobody realizes this, is that those comments got deleted off the broadcast. The people at NBC actually deleted those comments they were talking about with his Christian beliefs. They deleted those out and just aired the comments about his thoughts on the game. And I was really, really peeved off by that. I was extremely peeved off by that. Because that is something, quite frankly, that that you don't do. You know, just something that you just don't do. Yeah, I lost a lot of respect for NBC and not doing that. Granted, I do understand you have a time frame for doing your everything, but you know what? The guy just won a big game, and he deserved every moment. And those comments should have been aired without any questions to be asked. Please post your comments on my Facebook page. I'd love to see what you think about that. You know? And it just, and as I'm looking at this, I'm not looking at, maybe it's on my other page here. See my shows is on my page. There's that. There's that right there. Interesting. But it just amazed me that they were unable to they were just unable to post those comments. Let's see here. So that's my show right there. Okay. Bobby Skinner says hello. Go Bucs. Hey Joe. Hey Bobby. Good to see you. Tracy Fortner also commented a minute ago. Glad to see you as always. So apparently, go to my Animal Football Insider Facebook page. My show is on there, and click on that, and you'll be able to see my show if you're on Facebook as well, plus on YouTube and anything else. But I just found it to be weird, the NBC. But nevertheless, what we're looking at is a situation where we have some great games this weekend. Four stupendous games, and people. And my wife asked me the question the other day. She goes, "Animal," that's what she likes to call me every now and then. She goes, "Animal, do you really believe that the Buccaneers can win this weekend?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" I mean, Detroit. I think Detroit's a good team. I don't think they are a great team. I think they're a team that can be beat. And I think the Buccaneers match up well, man for man, against most of the Detroit Lion players. And for Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, they have a lot to prove to themselves. The Lions have a lot to, but I think for this game, the Lions have more to prove to themselves. Let's keep one thing in mind, people. The Buccaneers have exceeded all expectations during the course of the year. I mean, you go back to the beginning of the year when the Buccaneers were thinking about bringing Baker Mayfield on, and everybody was like, "Oh, the Buccaneers are gonna go 4-12 or 5-11, maybe 3-13. This is gonna be a sucky ass team, and Todd Bowles is gonna be fired, and blah 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 blah." But little did they know what was ahead. And as we enter this weekend, hardly any, and I give me any Buccaneer fan expected this. And they are within the rights, and they are within the rights to think so. When you consider the way the Buccaneers have been playing, especially that last homestand during the regular season, I forget who it was against. My mind escapes me. Yes, citrus in the animal does have a mind, but that's another story on its own. But still, they rallied from that loss that weekend, was able to come back and win the NFC, and I know. And and it was a game against the New Orleans Saints, which, by the way, they have some very interesting things happening with that organization. But it just makes for some very interesting postseason conversations down the stretch. But for the Bucs, they're worried. The only concern right now is this weekend against the Detroit Lions. For me, if I'm a diehard Buccaneer fan like I am, I want the Buccaneers to win. I want them to do everything they can to win this weekend. Uh, but if things don't happen the way they should, you know, then so be it. Trying to do some things here real quick. And I'm 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 happy with what's happened during this year. I'm totally fine with what's happened this year. Todd Bowles, in my opinion, should be the coach of the year given everything that's happened. And speaking of everything that's happened, how about the Dallas Cowboys? They took on the Packers this past weekend. They get blown out. That would just made my weekend. I mean, I was just ecstatic as all could be. And a lot of people are questioning about Todd Bowles and his future with the organization. And as it turns out, that it turns out that Mike McCarthy is going to return, uh, to the team next year as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Got to charge up my lighting here, so just please bear with me for just a minute. So that's kind of what's going on there. Lauren Meadows, by the way, will be joining me in just a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with the Florida Gators. And I know that they've started their workouts. So as I said, here's the way here's the way the playoffs are going to work. Let's review them one more time before we bring on Lauren Meadows here in a few minutes. Packers. Let's see. Saturday's game is going to be Houston at Baltimore. That's 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN and ABC. Texans will take on the Ravens, followed by the nightcap that night. The Packers will be at San Francisco taking on the 49ers. Sunday afternoon, Bucs and Lions at 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central on NBC, followed by the Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. That's the lineup. There is also some off the field news that is happening. Jim Harbaugh is doing several interviews. It looks like the San Diego Chargers may be the front runner for him unless a new contract can get worked out with the Michigan Wolverines. Apparently, there's some other things that are going on from a contractual standpoint that needs to get rectified. But right now, it looks like at this time that unless things fall apart with Michigan, that it could very well be that the San Diego Chargers could very well be the front runner for the San Diego job. We can also tell you that the Raiders, they look like they're going to be taking on Pierce as their new head coach. He was the interim coach for a while. I forget his first name, so I apologize. The Atlanta Falcons, they have a head coaching search as they fired Arthur Smith. And the reports that we have coming out right now have it that Bill Belichick, who left the New England Patriots, may be in line to take the new job with the Falcons. Now, I think that's kind of crazy. I think that's kind of insane to hear something like that. Why would you want to hire a guy like Bill Belichick to be your head coach? Now, before everybody calls me crazy, which I'm sure some of you are right now, I want you to understand something. This is a 72, 73-year-old coach who has won numerous Super Bowls, has done a great job with the New England Patriots. Make no mistake about it. Why would you want to ruin such an illustrious career and have the headlines, have your last headlines be as as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, having them one of the worst jobs that anybody could get, and ending up not doing very well? Now, look, Belichick may come in and revive the Atlanta Falcons. He may do that. I don't know. But that's an interesting situation for Arthur Blank to bring a guy like Bill Belichick onto the scene. Watching on my Facebook page, and I hardly see anybody watching, but if you want to chime in and talk about things, please feel free to do so. And we'd love to have some comments, no thoughts about Belichick and anything that's happening around the National Football League. By the way, the injury report sponsored by Carpet Direct. For all your carpeting needs in the confines of Western in the Des Moines, Iowa area, get a hold of my good friend Taylor Benton. You know that it's snowing outside. It's the snow is falling like crazy, and when you're coming inside the house, your wife's gonna get upset with you because you're not wiping your feet off, and you damage your carpet and you ruin it, and you need new carpeting. Well, good thing for my friend Benton Taylor. Got a great company called Carpet Direct, who sponsors the Animal Football Insider, by the way. It's a heck of a guy, but does an excellent job for his company and does a great job with carpeting skills. So if you need some carpeting done in the Des Moines, Iowa area or any place in Iowa, give my good friend Taylor Benton a call with Carpet Direct. He will more than happy get you set up um, for all your carpeting needs. And of course, the Buccaneer Injury Report is sponsored by yours truly, confines of Carpet Direct. This is the injury report as we have it right now on this Saturday or Thursday, I should say. Courtesy of Greg Auburn, and that's what I should put on it right now. Hang on just a second. Let me get my good friend. Okay, hang on just a second here. Okay, hang on here. Okay. Let's see here. There we go. It's courtesy of Greg Allman of the Atlantic uh, magazine online. For the Buccaneers, Shaquille Barrett has an ankle injury, has not participated yet. Yaya Dobby has a shoulder injury. He practiced today, but was limited in the practicing. Chase Edmonds, a running back, has not participated yet. Chris Godwin was limited today with that knee injury. Baker Mayfield still has a rib injury, but he was in full participation today. Now for the Lions, as you see here right now, linebacker Anthony Alex Anzalone has a shoulder ribs injury. He was in full participation today. Of course, former player for the University of Florida. Brian Branch has a knee injury, full participation. James Houston, full participation. Kirby Joseph, full participation. Sam Laporta, the tight end for the Lions, he has a knee injury. He was limited today in his participation. Center Frank Ragnow, he was full participation despite having a knee, back, and toe injury. Khalif Raymond, knee injury, did not participate. And Brock Wright has an hip injury. And of course, again, that is sponsored by Greg Allman of the Atlantic newspaper. Um, that's courtesy of Greg Allman, and I thank him for allowing us to do that here today. So, thanks to Greg for letting me do that. So that's your injury report as of today. Now that could change as we head into the weekend, and it should be interesting to see what happens there. Now again, the Bucs are supposed to be going in tomorrow, flying in because it's supposed the way it's supposed to work during playoff. You're supposed to be in the opponent's city 48 hours before the game. So we'll see what happens in the next 48 hours as they get ready for the Detroit Lions. You know, Dan Lanning or Dan Henning, who's the head coach of the Detroit Lions, he was talking about Baker Mayfield the other day, and he told a very interesting story about Baker. How when he was coming out of college, and he was doing multiple workouts with multiple teams, that Dan saw him, and he didn't have anybody to throw to receivers at a workout. Now, Baker had just had two workouts the previous day, was going to go to another one later on that afternoon. And Baker, who allegedly was in flip flops, he decides he's going to throw for him, for Dan, for for the head coach. And he was like, you know what? I have a lot of respect for a guy like that does something like that. And kudos to Baker and what he's brought about, not just to the team as a quarterback, but as a person. Okay. Which brings me to another aspect of all this. Will you re-sign Baker Mayfield to another contract? And how much? Is it going to be for 40? Is it going to be for $45 million over a 5-6 year period? What would you sign? What would you like to sign Baker Mayfield for? I'd like to see your comments in my Facebook chat or on YouTube. Post them. I'd like to see it. Should be interesting. Yours truly, the animal, on this edition of the Animal Football Insider, sponsored by the fine people of Carpet Direct for all your carpeting needs in the Des Moines, Iowa area. Please give my good friend Taylor Benton a call. I'd be more happy to help you out with that. But as I look back on this, I say to myself, Baker has done everything that he's had to do. What else does Baker Mayfield need to do to prove himself as a quarterback? I don't think much. And if the Bucs win this weekend, more power to us. We could possibly be playing another home game this weekend, or the following weekend, I should say. But I'm not going to be disappointed in the least bit if we lose this weekend. Not in the least bit. We have no reason to be disappointed. We have already exceeded the expectations that everybody set before us. Now, think about that. Think about everything during the course of this season that has gone down. When the Bucs went a 5-game losing streak, everybody said, "Oh man, this team is gonna stink to high heaven." That they come out and win the last 6 or 7 games. They win the NFC Central Division for the third straight year. They host a playoff game, which they won, and now they go on the road to take on the Detroit Lions. You cannot make this up, people. You just can't. And yet people here want to complain that Baker Mayfield's a bad quarterback, the top bulbs needs to go. I mean, it's like for the Florida Gators, you cannot appreciate what you have till it's gone. Ron Meadows, who writes for Gator Bait magazine, he would know a lot about that, appreciating things that you have until it's gone. We're gonna bring him on in just a second, as soon as I take another glass of non-alcoholic drink. Right. Okay, Lauren. Lauren, I'm on. Can't you see me, my friend? Uh, yeah. Put down the. That's right, Lauren. Put down the donut. I'm coming on here. There you go. Nice job. I'll give you a moment to chew it. Lord Meadows of Gator Bait Magazine joining me on this edition of the Animal Football Insider as we come to you tonight while Lord Meadows is chomping on donuts. Gator fans are chomping on the fact of having a great season this year. And as we switch our conversation to the Florida Gators, and I'm going to switch the hat here, recruiting for the Florida Gators was not all that bad.
Well, I mean, no. I mean, if you look at it from a number standpoint, I mean, I think they filled some needs with, obviously LJ McCray and DJ Lagway being one of the few schools to get 2 5 stars. But I mean, if you think about some of the flips and things like that, where the class drops from a top 5, top 10 class to, like top 20, you could say that the recruiting class wasn't all that bad, but I mean, in terms of optics, it was bad. And anytime, because a lot of people were giving kind of Billy Napier a little bit of a pass because of the fact that, well, the future's bright. Look how he's recruiting. He's recruiting at a high level. He's recruiting like a top 10 program, but the product on the field wasn't as good. Well, now you drop to 16th and you're down, about midway in the SEC rankings. But I will caution people, because I've talked to them about this a lot of different times. Now with the transfer portal, I think you're going to see, and I think we talked about it on this show too, high school recruiting is going to become less and less a big deal. I mean, it's just not anymore, because it used to be where you got that young man and he's in the fold and he signs, and you got him for 3 to 4 years. Well, that's not the case anymore. I mean, guys are going to be moving around and, building their teams with the transfer portal. So, I think this whole high school recruiting, and I feel bad for some of these beat nuts that really follow this stuff and harp on it. I mean, I saw things now, 2025. I mean, it's so far away. I mean, but that's what people do. But it really,
Yeah.
if you talk about how a team is constructed and how teams will be constructed going forward, I just don't think. I think high school recruiting is going to become less and less important because you got guys like Lane Kiffin and others, and I think Billy Napier would be in his best interest to do the same thing, that are building their teams through the transfer portal, getting play now kind of players, guys that may or may not be happy with a particular situation or NIL or whatever. And you put yourself in a position to feel, I wouldn't necessarily say you want to swap out players, but if you could consistently fill a need where you lose an experienced player and you're actually replacing with someone who has the same amount of snaps, if not more, then I think you can be in good shape. And as bad as we don't like kids coming and going, if a school can use it right, then the fan in you can appreciate the transfer portal, because heaven forbid Graham Mertz didn't transfer last year. I don't know what was going to happen, and those 5 wins. Ugh. So you look at some of that stuff, and even the Ricky Pearsalls of the world. I mean, imagine no Ricky Pearsall against South Carolina, or I mean, it's tough.
But yeah, and I get all that, and I understand what you're saying, but it just seems to me that it's taking away from the excitement of of what college football is about. Getting those recruits, looking at National Signing Day. We're going to be coming up on the second phase here in a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's hardly going to be watching. And it's like, look what the NIL has done to college football. And initially, a lot of people were saying, hey, we like it and all, but the way it's turned out, I don't think this is the way the college football wanted the NIL to be.
Blame the NCAA.
Yeah.
20 years ago, they had an opportunity to get out in front of this. And, Steve Spurrier at the SEC meeting said, we got to give them something, and go in your own wallets and pay them. And if you don't want to do that, I'm gonna let the media know which of you didn't want to do that. And, the NCAA a long time ago could have gotten in front of this thing. They could have preserved the spirit of amateur athletics, student athletes, all of those things. But once you got the Supreme Courts in, and it became a political move for a lot of these governors of these states and things like that. And I'm talking Democratic and Republican, so we're not talking, one side or the other, but guys, jumping in front of this thing to make themselves popular with the powers that be. And it just came off the rails. There's no getting it back. So like I said on Buddy's show a couple last week, the beauty of it is there's still 22 players on the field. The field is still 53 and a third wide. It's still, 100 yards long.
Oh, yeah.
But after that, it is no longer the same. And now you truly have young men coming to visit a school, and they say, "Hey, Coach Animal, how much you got for me?" Okay, that's enough. I'll take my visit now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not. It is, and I don't like it either. But that is the reality of it, and you can live with it, or you can learn to fish. You can learn to golf, play some pickleball while the games are going on. But otherwise, there's. I mean, the only thing that's going to happen is people that have far more money than you and I, and this is what I think is ultimately going to happen. There is going to be, at some point in time, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where somebody who's really good at making their money is going to say, there is zero return on investment with this young man that I'm giving all this money to, or this program. I don't get a
Well,
tax write-off. I don't get anything. Eventually, I'm going to pull that back. And then when the well starts to dry up, you may see a return to normalcy. But
well,
it's going to be interesting because there's some guys that got so much money that they just like whatever, you know. But
I got a twofold thing about this, and I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, first part is this. There's a guy on Twitter that talked about the NIL and gave a nice explanation about things. One of the things that he referred to is that, in large part, is that people who have big money giving these players who decide to transfer in, giving them big money to come to the school, and yet they're not giving out this money. So they go to these other and what I mean by this, I'm gonna give an example. Okay, for example, and this is just a hypothetical thing, but I think it really applies to what I'm talking about here. Let's say a guy like Lauren Meadows. He's at the University of Houston. Five-star running back, one of the best in the nation. He got recruited by Houston. He decides that he's going to enter the transfer portal. That's fine. He goes to the University of Florida. He meets with the staff and everything and so forth and so on. Then he has a meeting with the NIL people. Lauren Meadows says, "What are you going to give me? What are you going to give me for this?" And the people at the University of Florida lowball him. They don't give him the kind of money that Lauren Meadows is worthy of getting. So Lauren Meadows goes to, say, the University of Tennessee and gets a better NIL deal. The people come back and bitching because Billy Napier was not able to recruit the guys. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't Billy Napier that failed in the recruiting process. It's the NIL people failing and not to give Lauren Meadows the proper deal that he got. That the Florida people should have given him to stay. Now, as I give you this hypothetical situation, it's kind of reality for what's happening with college football. Now, am I wrong on this? And please correct me on anything that I've said here.
no, you said exactly right. The only difference is if Lauren Meadows decides, hey, I like palm trees, cute girls, 70-degree average for the next couple of years that I'm gonna be at the University of Florida, or Billy Napier is gonna give me the lion's share of the totes, and I'm gonna be running behind a great offensive line. I mean, I still think football comes into some of the decisions, not all, but some people can be bought and some people can't. And like you said, if you can be bought, then instead of going to the University of Florida, I go to Tennessee. Because here's the thing, you think about it. I look at it this way, and you and I, you know what I do for a living, my other job. And, it's funny because you have right now some college athletes that are making more money than I'm making, right? As college athletes. But then once college is over, you got to go and make an NFL roster, right? You don't make that NFL roster, then you got to come to somebody like a Lauren Meadows or others, and I got to put you on my payroll. I got to put you on my gig. And that's what I think is interesting, is the fact that the long-term benefits of it all don't necessarily help the student athlete. It helps them while they're in school. But if I'm making $900,000, $90,000 a month, let's just say, and that comes out to be, $900,000 a year, roughly, or whatever, even more, close to $1 million a year. But then I go and don't make an NFL roster. So I have to either have invested that very well, but I may never see that amount of money again. And that's that table that I don't like, is because, like, I know for a fact there's a couple guys at Florida driving Teslas. Well, you might not be making Tesla money here in the next couple of years, because if you don't make an NFL roster, you got to make that degree work for you. And that means somebody's got to grab you, give you a job, and they're just not handing out, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 jobs, a year. So, at the end of the day, are we as a society doing these young men any favors? I mean, granted, it stinks that the university makes all this money and we don't pay them at all. But this whole highest bidder thing, eventually you got to go out and get a job, man. And now you might have a little savings, a little kitty, but you and I both know in this world, you leave school, graduate 22 years old. You got to go out and work for at least 40 more years before you can retire.
Right.
And so, I mean, I just think that's all these things, the long-term effects of this thing are still, and it's funny, man. I'm talking to you, but I caution these young men and these parents because, you better teach your son or daughter, even daughters, because there's some women making some bank too. You better teach them money management skills, but you also better teach them to understand that very same person that asks you for a picture, that asks you for an autograph, that wants to shake your hand, one day could be signing your checks because there's only 53 roster spots. It ain't 105 like in college. It's 53 roster spots in the NFL. It's 12 roster spots in the NBA. It is not fluid that you're going to play at that level. So, so you look at it from that standpoint too. It's almost like quick, fast money, but there's just a lot that goes into it, man. And I just, this thing went off the rails really fast. And ultimately, I think it's the NCAA's fault.
Oh, and I totally agree with you on that. Lauren Meadows joining me on this edition of Animal Football Insider, sponsored by corporate director of Western Moines, Iowa. And you're right. I think the NCAA blew all this by not really thinking about this through before understanding what NIL was supposed to be all about. Now, part of the thing that you talked about earlier was the fact, is that paying money for something but not getting the benefits and rewards, which I can totally relate to this because I was a part of Florida Victorious. I like the concept. I like the fact of donating to the school and helping out with Florida Gators, even though I'm not a part of the school. But I mean, it's like, I try to get involved in like hearing players' press conference and all that. Nobody would get back to me on things like that. It was like I wasn't reaping the rewards by entering into this. And one of the things that I've heard a criticism of Scott Strickland lately is not being able to promote Florida Victorious enough. Now, A, should he be doing that? And B, if he is that a violation of NCAA regulations, given the fact that Florida Victorious technically has nothing to do with the Florida Gators? Please explain.
Yeah, Scott Strickland has nothing to do with that. If you think Scott Strickland does, and I'm not talking about you, I say you as in the people that
I understand.
think they know everything. No, Scott Strickland's responsibility has nothing to do with Florida Victorious. The fact that he can make recommendations, all the coaches can, they can, make kids available, push the narrative, allow them to get involved. I know Florida Victorious has a big community service arm, that they're involved in, and they can encourage all those things, make those people available. But that's not Scott Strickland's job. Scott Strickland got worried about facilities and paying coaches and making sure everybody's on the same boat and making sure the tickets is right, the refreshments and all that. That's his job, not raising money and being out there for NIL. He raises money for them to build that, to make sure the stadium is ADA friendly in the next 3 to 5 years. And, to make sure that, like they're building, Mouse Holloway, a little little area at the track and those kind of things. That's
Right.
what his responsibility is. His responsibility has nothing to do with Florida Victorious. Florida Victorious has to engage the boosters and others like yourself and things like that to put a little piece in every so often. And they offer and like I said, I've gone to some of those events and been treated very well, been welcomed at the tent on the Gator Walk, all those things. Not one time have I felt like as a member of the collective that I was not what's the word, respected, so to speak, and my
Right.
contributions to this thing, whether it's interviewing players, whether it's just being a positive person about the entire athletic program. I've never felt that. But, people that want to jump on Scott Strickland, I mean, I think
Why
that
is why let's go to that because a lot of people on Twitter are like, let's fire Strickland, let's fire the UAA. I mean, it's like they feel like was responsible.
well, that has
Oh
nothing
my
to do
God.
that you're complaining about something you have zero control over. The
Exactly.
UAA is going nowhere. Florida is one of the highest earning athletic departments in the entire country. The athletic department as a whole is extremely successful. It just, I mean, there's nothing that lends itself to firing Scott Strickland. Some of the people want to bring up the soccer thing and the women's basketball thing. Well, that was handled in house. Both coaches resigned. There are new coaches there now that are doing very well. Kelly Ray Finley is somebody that I have a ton of respect for,
Hmm.
and the girls love her.
I
So
like
that's what
her.
I'm saying. The fact that he was able to manage that, is one thing, but then that's just not his job. His job is to
No.
oversee the entire athletic program. And I know that you'll tell people, well, football is the only thing that matters in basketball. Well, tell that to the parent of a tennis player. Tell that
Yeah,
to a parent of a soccer player.
that's
Tell
right.
that to the parent of a lacrosse player, or even baseball. Tell that to them. And I know football is the lifeblood and things like that. And Scott Strickland may go by the fate of Billy Napier. He may. His fate may be attached to, the Billy Napiers and the Ty Goldens. But at this point in time, just like today, he came out and said, "I'm staying. I ain't going nowhere. I'm not going to Texas A&M. I'm staying here."
Yeah.
Now, if that's the case, then he's going to be here, and he has done a good job. I think that the coaches that work for him and enjoy him, you obviously Ben Sass is busy running the university, so but Scott Strickland has he done an I mean, it's hard to judge an athletic director except for the fact that he built the indoor facility. A football
That
facility.
and that
He
thing is
built
so
built
impressive.
built a
That thing
baseball
is
stadium.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
That
so
is so impressive.
right.
I took a recent trip down to Florida. Was able to go inside the stadium. You saw my pictures, hopefully.
Hmm.
Got to
Yeah, I
meet
did.
Keith Niebauer of Gators Online, and we're going to try and have him on in just a couple of weeks. But one of the things is that as I was walking through the stadium rows, I walked along the stadium row across from one end to another, and as I'm walking across there, the space was not that far apart, was not that much. So I can understand Scott Strickland's um plans for wanting to just make it a little bit more comfortable for the
Well, it's
fans.
it's federal law. You have to be ADA compliant. It's not, you don't get a choice. You have to have side rails. You have to have those things. That's, they have them at the baseball stadium. They have them at KDC Soul
Oh, you
Presley.
mean down the road
Yeah,
with the handrails?
they have them at,
Yeah, yeah.
you gotta have those. That is federal law. You have to have those things. And see, that's the thing. People
Oh,
want to get
right.
it. I mean, you have to have those things.
Yes, you
But
do.
Scott Strickland can also present anybody that has anything to say data that says people stay home more. Students aren't going to the games as much as they used to because I can sit back. I got my brewski, I got my drink, I got my
Yeah.
TV, I can go bathroom, I can do all these things. People are not coming. And empty seats, I guarantee you, there were empty seats when they were 10-2, 9-3 under Dan Mullen. I mean, Alabama, I mean, you've heard Saban, students aren't coming. They're staying at their dorms and sitting on the couch and kicking it or whatever they're doing. But they have to get that stadium up to a certain point for the ADA and all those things. But like you said, they don't even have an in-house kitchen at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium.
Wait, in-house kitchen. What do you mean?
They don't have the ability to make food and do those things. They don't have a kitchen. All that is brought in.
I did not know that.
Right.
Wow.
So all of these things and the ability to do these things is something that they're going to be able to put into this whole project. And that's what it's going to be. So, like I said, I mean, people,
Wow.
I think that sometime if you just stop and listen sometime and talk to some people that are in the know, I think it would, because is it going to be any less loud? The stands are still going to be 5 feet from the sideline.
Yeah.
Right.
What's he talking
Is it going to
about?
be any less loud with
No.
75,000 people as opposed to 88,000? I don't
No.
think so. And you don't want the stadium moved. Everybody was against that. So if you wanted to stay on Gail Limerick Drive, you wanted to stay the Swamp, and you can't mess with Florida Gymnasium because it's on the historical register, things like that. There's only so much you could do. So they got to do something. And that's what they're going to do. And I mean, you think about it. You can't even walk the entire concourse. That would be nice to be able to walk the whole, walk around and, have things up and people,
Right.
so.
Yeah, you have to walk. And for the people who don't understand what Lauren is talking about, when you go up the stadium, in order to walk around, there's a little like a wall that separates from seeing the field. And so you have to walk around it. So I don't know how they're going to fix that issue. Now, on to what's happening on the field. He's Bill Napier has made some changes to the coaching staff, but he's not made any changes to the offensive coaching staff, and that raises some interesting questions. Are new coaches going to be hired? I mean, what's the latest on that? He already has a new strength and conditioning coach, and we saw where the Gators have started workouts this week. I mean, judging by that, I mean, it looks like the players like him, but offensively, there's not been on the coaching staff.
Well, if you look at it from the standpoint of Florida, offensively, you could say that offensively they don't have any issues. I mean, I know the offensive line was not as good as it was last year, but I think some of that was Graham Mertz sometime holding the ball a little too long and things like that. But if you look at points per game, I mean, they were right. They were scoring enough points to win football games. The biggest issue was the defense. Changes have been made on defense. And offensively, from a staff standpoint, he would have to get rid of somebody on offense to be able to bring in the mystical offense coordinator, which I don't think is going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen. No.
We're almost at February. We're about a month and a couple weeks away from the start of spring ball. I don't think he's going to bring an offense coordinator because I think we'd have known something by now. Yeah. And some people, I don't think that's a big deal. I think that, some of the things they do on offense could be corrected and curtailed. But defensively is where this team has lacked the last 2 years. I mean, if they could get off the field last year, easy, they were a 9-3 football team. And this past season, probably 8-4, 9-3 football team. But the ability to not get teams off the field when it counted has been this team's Achilles heel. I mean, they have been historically bad on defense, both visually and statistically, for 2 years. So they hire Ron Roberts, who is the father of the creeper defense that Florida's been trying to run for 2 years.
Tell me about
And
him. Tell
well,
me
I
about
mean,
him. I
he
don't
was
know
he
anything
was at
about him.
Baylor. He left Louisiana, went to Baylor, and really helped that defense under Dave Aranda. They ran the creeper there, and then he went to Auburn, and Auburn was actually pretty decent on defense this year. So his record, his ability to come in and teach defense and coach defense and schematically put them in a situation, I think is good. I really think that the makeup of the defensive staff, and I've heard this on good authority that Corey Raymond never felt real comfortable here on the staff. I don't know Sean Spencer very well, and you had Jay Bateman, who had been a coordinator at North Carolina, and it just seemed like there was a lot of disconnect at all three levels of the defense: front seven, linebackers, secondary. Just a big disconnect. So now you got Ron Roberts, who is familiar with Austin Armstrong, familiar with Billy Napier, and maybe some communication and things like that. But I think Florida's biggest problem on defense is, and I don't know this to be true, is they got a Monday through Thursday problem. I just don't think they practice hard enough.
One
And
and one of the things I noticed is that the strength and conditioning that we saw through Mark Hockey was more like respiratory things than more like weightlifting. I mean, we saw very little video of weightlifting, and that showed during the course of the year by the way this Florida offensive line played at times. The new guy that we have in here, do you think that he'll be more centered on weightlifting, getting stronger, than and less on running and agility and things like that?
well, the one thing I can say is that obviously coming from the pros, he will at least, I think, have an idea of how to manage the schedule of the season, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
the week to week, the day to day, even the off season, and maybe even with his connection to, obviously some of the greatest athletes in the world, some of the things that they've done in the off season with different trainers, and maybe apply some of that to his strength program at Florida. But a lot of times your strength program is run by your leadership. That's where you really make it. I mean, we talk about, and I'm not just talking about Swamp Kings, but you talk about the Ohio States and the Michigans, and your players run your weight room. Your leaders, your alpha males run your weight room. So
Okay.
lifting them weights is lifting them weights. I mean, everybody does the same lifts, everybody does all the, but it's the little nuances, the way things go. And obviously, you know, there was a change made because they did. I don't really know. Like I said, we don't get much. We don't get much with the with the weight program, and you talk to hockey, but you don't. And in hockey's defense, first thing Billy Napier came in the press conference when spring ball started was talked about all the gains that people made. So, I mean, I'll give hockey, at least if he wasn't doing the job or he hadn't done the job, then don't give us that hubbub about all the strides and the body fat and all these things that the kids had the strides that these young men had made, and then come to find out he's not the guy. I mean, now I'm sure there were inner workings that we're not familiar with, but everything we had heard was that the kids were making the strides and things like that. And I'll say it again. I don't think it was a weight problem either. I mean, I think people want to point at things and say things, but it's not. I just don't think that was their issue. I don't think they had a strength and conditioning problem. They had a making plays problem, which goes back to what I say all the time, and you've heard me say it. Stop giving me all that other fluff. What happens on the field, and who is responsible for what happens on the field? It starts with Billy Napier, then it goes down to the position coaches, and then those 100 people that got a Jordan shirt on walking around the Hefner. You know, everybody has a role in this. Running the field goal team out on after a first down when you got time to spike the ball against Arkansas ain't got nothing to do with Mark Hockey.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
4th and 17, you and I both were there. Ain't got nothing to do with Mark Hockey.
No.
How many points they score in that game? 30 points? You're supposed to win the game. It had nothing to do. So that's what I'm saying. If people would truly take the time and understand the game of football, this game is about making plays when they count. You look at the national semifinal game. Maybe not the best call in the world, but you got to give Michigan credit. On that 4th down and that overtime, they whipped the you-know-what out of Alabama's offensive line on that particular play. So unless they threw the ball, whatever play they ran, it wasn't going to work because Michigan's defense bowed up at that time. Ain't got nothing to do with whoever the strength coach is at Michigan or if it had been Florida, Mark Hockey. It's got to do with what you do Monday through Thursday to prepare to play on Saturday. And that's where I think Florida's biggest problem is. I don't think they prepare like they need to.
Lauren Meadows joined me on this edition of Animal Football Insight. What's impressed you most about Napier thus far? The National Signing Day, or the guys that he's gotten thus far in the transfer portal?
I think he's gotten some guys that can come in and help right away.
Yeah, I do.
And are they gangbusters? Are they household names? No, but I do think he's filled a need at safety. I think the kid from Oregon could be a nice safety for him. I think they got another safety. Obviously, the lineman coming from Arkansas could be a decent player. And he's had some guys on campus now. Obviously, I don't know if they'll sign or things like that, but the one thing I could say I will say transfers simply because if you look at the transfers that he's brought in, for the most part, they have been guys that have been able to come in and make a difference right away, So, and have been prominent members of the team. So that evaluation process has been pretty good. With the recruiting, I guess what I'd say with the recruiting, so I would say the transfer portal is the most impressive. But what I will say about the recruiting is I hope this all works out for Napier because I think, Katie Turner, Bree Wade, that group that has been put in place for the recruiting, I really think they do a great job. I think they're a people person. So I hope this works out because they have provided an atmosphere where kids want to be here. They're enjoying their visits. Parents are involved and things like that. So, I mean, his recruiting staff, I think he's hired some really good people there. So,
and we're not just talking about good recruiting people. We're talking about good people all together. I mean, when I was in Missouri for the game earlier this year, when the team was coming in, I had a chance to meet with Katie Turner, and we got a picture together, and we just talked for a couple of minutes. Very nice lady and very intelligent. So I was really impressed with her.
Yeah, no, very nice, very, very approachable. Very, very just dialed in. And the thing is they believe in what they're doing here. So, and that's all you can really ask for. So I think at the end of the day, it's tough right now, man. It's tough. It's not what Florida fans expect, and I mean, it's a process, and if you talk about, you know, I and I think one thing that people say is right is, you can't keep changing coaches, number one. And
No.
if you look at the Jim Harbaugh model, um, for instance, first 6 years didn't come close to beating Ohio State. Now he's beating them 3 straight years or 1 out of 6 times, whatever. And they stuck with him. So,
It's Ohio State. It's Ohio State gonna let him. I mean, is Michigan really gonna let him go to the Chargers? I mean, I can't
I
believe that
don't,
Michigan's gonna let him
well, I
go.
mean,
I don't get it.
they may not have a choice. It's not about letting them. It's the fact that, number one, the landscape is changing, and just like Saban getting out of it, you could say a lot of different things. Maybe Harbaugh's get to the point where he has done. I mean, because you think about it, could they win it again next year? Maybe, but it was almost 26 years in between national titles. He definitely doesn't want to wait another 26 years to win one in Michigan. So,
No.
you still got Ohio State. I mean, you got USC,
Yeah.
UCLA coming into the
Right.
league. I mean, is it even worth it, man, to get a team prepared to play at Maryland one weekend, and then you got to fly across the country to play Oregon or UCLA or USC the next weekend, or Washington?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that,
That.
or do you want to go deal with 53 grown men where you've already had success? They're going to give
Yeah.
him the world, and you don't have to deal with none of that. You don't have to
Yeah.
recruit, you have to do anything. It's all about ball. And that's why a lot of those guys are thinking, look at these pro jobs, and you get to live in a beautiful, and he's already familiar with the San Diego community, lived
Yeah.
there, played there,
Makes sense.
um, and coached there. So, I mean, I think I mean, just all those things, and you get a different view of things, particularly after you've won a national title. Now, if he still had unfinished business at Michigan, maybe so, but really, there's not much else. He did everything he needed to get his bronze statue. You can best believe that. So,
Were you surprised by the announcement of Nick Saban leaving, and even surprised further that they hired a guy that does not have ties to Alabama?
well, I was surprised that he left because they had done so well recruiting this past year. I mean, they
Mm.
they had arguably the number one class ever in recruiting history. So I thought he would see this class through. As far as Kalen DeBoer, what I tell people is Kalen DeBoer was not their first choice. So
Who was their
somebody
first
had,
choice?
huh?
Who was their first
Oh,
choice?
I have no idea. I mean, I
Okay.
mean, you got to think. I'm sure they called Sarkeesian. I'm sure they called Lane Kiffin. I'm sure they reached out to Dabo Sweeney. I mean, I'm sure they reached out to some more accomplished coaches to see if they would want the job. But somebody had to say yes. So I'm gonna guess that Kalen DeBoer definitely was not the first choice. But you know, somebody had to say yes. And I mean, if you look at his work, they could have done worse. I mean, he took Washington to the national championship game. I mean, so, and whether they were one of the top four teams or whether, he did what he needed to do under the system. So when you say surprised, I'm not surprised because I said this on Buddy's show. Somebody's eventually got to say yes because a lot of people are going to say no. So when you go through this thing, it's just like you think Will Muschamp was Jeremy Foley's first choice to succeed, to succeed Urban Meyer? Absolutely not. You think Jim McElwain was the first choice? Probably not.
But
You know,
no.
and and from what I understand, even Dan Mullen wasn't the first choice. So the person that says yes is not always the first choice. So, you know, DeBoer will have to manage a lot, particularly in that state. But I think he's shown that He can coach football, and for all the guys that are leaving, there will be plenty of guys that will be knocking down the door to play for the University of Alabama. So, I think he'll manage that and, you know, um, handle things as best he can. But, somebody had to say yes, and it was him. Because if you think about it, if all those guys said no, the Sarkeesians, the Kiffins, the Dabos, then there's really not anybody left. You start hiring coordinators then, and that really wouldn't have gone over well. So you bring out a guy that's got the resume to go behind it, and and some people said Mike Loxley, and I mean I'm gonna just keep it real with you. I don't think the state of Alabama is ready for that right now.
No,
So
no.
I just think that they I mean I just this is me. I just there's still a lot going on in the state of Alabama that they have to deal with, and I don't know Mike Loxley personally, but it just I'm not sure they're ready for that just yet. So
back
and
back to uh
so
back to Scott Strickland here. Just saw this on Twitter a moment ago, and I will post this for you. According to Thomas Goldcamp of 247 Sports, um, this is what he says: that Florida Gators athletic director Scott Strickland signed a 3-year contract extension on July 22nd, 2021. That includes a base salary of 545,000 from about $1.151 million to 1.725. That's according to Thomas Goldcamp. So he is at least through 2024 for the Florida Gators. Now, where that goes from here, that's going to be an interesting
mhm.
to see what happens. But I think Scott stays. I think that Florida people are just getting already. I just get tired of seeing on my timeline. This is a guy that's doing things right. Be patient. This is going to get it done. It doesn't happen in 1 year. It's going to take a while.
Well, I mean, does Scott Strickland call any plays?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, me and you. I mean, we were on the same Twitter feed. I mean, we were there that night and all this stuff. But I mean, Scott Strickland. When did he call a play? When did he draw up a defense? Does he dribble the ball, shoot the ball? Does he no? So I mean, Florida is a. I mean, it would be tough to get fired as the University of Florida athletic director.
Tell
Short
me
of
about
you,
it.
short of you committing some kind of crime, because all the sports are so good. I mean, all the sports are competitive, and for every
Look at Todd going in the basketball team. There, I mean,
look at
there,
Ty go look at
there's
Kelly Ray Finley. Look
Kelly
look at
Does. I
where
mean,
look at where she's trying to bring the basketball program. I mean, look at the baseball program, and that beautiful facility they got that's paying off for them. You got the number one recruiting class coming in softball. But see, here's the thing. Well, if he gets credit for the bad things, then does he get credit for the good things? The does he get credit for Tim Walton signing the number one class? Does he get credit for Sully going to the finals, the final game of the College World Series? Does he get credit for I mean, does he give credit for Mouse Holloway and his success? I mean, he didn't hire those guys, but he's their boss now. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, everybody, but then you'll have people. Well, those sports don't matter. Well, they don't matter until they win, and then you put them up on your Facebook ticker that they won the national title. So they do matter, and that's what I'm saying. He is the head of the athletic department, not the football basketball department. He is in charge of every varsity sport that Florida has. We just won a national championship in golf. That I don't see where a guy like that goes anywhere.
if you fire a guy like Scott Strickland now, you're saying you're tearing everything up that you've done, and you're starting from the bottom level again, which means, guess what? it's going to be a while before you get back up to the
Well,
track.
but they're, I
So,
mean, they're getting ready to renovate the gymnastics facility. All these things are a function of what Scott Strickland and the UAA are about. The entire program. He does not call plays. Now, that is not to say, and I will say this, and I hope this doesn't come back to bite me. I think his future at Florida could be tied to the success of Billy Napier. I do think that. So I'm going
and
to
I do
leave
too.
it, and I'm going to
I
leave it at
agree.
that. And now notice I didn't say if Napier gets fired, Strickland gets fired. I'm just saying that I think his future is tied to Billy Napier, and in some respect, Todd Golden as well. But definitely Billy Napier, because I think he made it very clear to me, and I could be wrong, but in the presser, he made it very clear that Napier was his guy. This is who I wanted. He was the man. Everything I did checked out. So I think that's but I like Scott Strickland. I like where the athletic program is at Florida right now. Um, could football be better? Absolutely. Um, is basketball on the right track? Absolutely. I
I
think
do
so.
too.
But
Yeah, I do too.
but you got other sports that are kicking tail. So it's kind of.
I want to get you on one more time before my season ends. Okay. Now, here's what I want. Here's what I like for you to do for me. Okay. We're gonna bring you on probably on the week before Super Bowl Sunday. The Florida Gators have the number one toughest schedule in all of college football. I'm gonna give you time to really think about this, and when you come back on my show on the week before the Super Bowl championship game, I want you to give me a prediction on where you think this team will be for 2024. I don't want you to give me an answer now.
You
I
mean
want you to
record?
think
You mean record wise, based on the
record
schedule?
wise, yes, yes.
Okay.
And see what you think happens. Now, um, as far as the way the new thing is set up, it's my understanding that it's going to be one big long it's not going to be divided. It's going to be one long conference with 16 teams, with the top two going to the SEC championship. Correct me if
Correct.
I'm wrong on any of
Yes.
this.
Yes. That is
Okay.
that is true.
Would they come back and try and reanalyze that after this season, or what do you think happens? What do you think happens there? I mean,
I
I
don't
don't.
know. I mean, I think they're going to keep it that way for a while because you know, I mean, I guess yeah, I think it'll stay the way it is. I had heard talk of like pods, different pods that you play, and then you kind of, but I think they'll try this model at least for the next 2 or 3 years to see how it works out, you know,
And
especially with the
one
12-team playoff, because I think
and
that'll, you know,
DJ Lagway signed with the Florida Gators. The kid's been hyped up for well over a year, and now
hmm
he's finally on campus. Will he play this coming season, or you think he's just going to be behind Graham Mertz and let him learn from Mertz?
I, a lot of people think that they're going to have some kind of package for him and things like that. I think that that's going to that's going to be, I'd say no. I don't think he's going to play much at all, but he may play his 4 games so he doesn't have to red shirt, so he can maintain his red shirt or what have you. But I don't think I
Oh,
mean,
that's right, Richard. Yeah, that's
I
right.
mean, if
Yep,
they're
yep.
if they're humming on offense and things like that, I just don't see, because I mean, Graham Mertz is going to be. I mean, he's going to be auditioning for, the opportunity to make some money, and
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
nothing Mertz did warranted him taking less snaps than he took this year.
Yeah.
I really don't believe that. So, and then if they want to change the pace, I mean, they've still got Montrell Johnson, Cam Carroll will be back. They'll have guys that they could depend on for some change of pace, wildcat that kind of thing. Now, blowout time, if they're putting it on somebody, could we get a little lag way? Sure, but this is, I mean, now stranger things have happened, but I mean, there are some people that think he's going to beat out Mertz. I just don't see it. I mean, to me, Mertz is a really good quarterback. I mean, Mertz is probably. I think Mertz. If you put Mertz, I mean, yeah, I mean he's in the top five, if not top two or three in the conference to me. And I mean, I really feel that strongly about him. I think he can really play quarterback. So I don't see Lagway. I mean, I think people are going to be disappointed, just like they are with the OC. If you remember, I told you on your show, I don't think he's going to hire an OC. I told you months ago.
No, you did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think Lagway's going. I mean, the football coach in me tells me Lagway won't play that much.
Yeah.
Nor should he.
No, and I agree with you, but it's also an interesting debate. I just got a notification. Gators Online had an interview with Scott Strickland. I gotta check that out in just a couple
Okay.
of minutes. So I'll check that out in just a couple of minutes. One final question, then I'm gonna let you go. Does the NCAA step in with everything that's happening with the NIL and enforce new, updated stipulations on the NIL? Do we foresee that happening?
I don't think they can. Didn't the Supreme Court basically say that it's on each state to govern it accordingly? They kind of took it out the hands of the
I don't.
NCAA.
I have
Yeah, I
not
think
heard.
I
I've
think
not
I
heard
think
that.
I think
Please.
the ultimate ruling was that you have the ability as an individual, be it on scholarship or not on scholarship, to market yourself accordingly.
That I
So
did not know.
so
That
that
I did
so
not know.
that so yeah, and each state can regulate it. So I think it's actually like what the ninth amendment of the Constitution actually
Yeah.
states that if it's something federal and federal government doesn't want to deal with it, it goes to the states. And I think that was kind of the premise of this whole thing. So now each state can regulate how they want to do it and that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't think the NCAA, because what you're going to have is, let's say the NCAA steps in. What I think you would then have is you would have the major college conferences would then break away from the NCAA and govern themselves, which is what a lot of people think should happen in the first place.
Let me ask you this: you want to hear this from Scott Strickland?
Was that
You want to hear this thing from Scott Strickland?
the interview?
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, okay.
I'll
It's
read
just a
that.
little. No. It's just a little short soundbite, not the whole
Oh, well, go
thing.
ahead. Yeah, knock it out. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go ahead
If
and
you can
knock
get
this
it
out.
up.
This is courtesy of Gators Online. Scott Strickland's talking with Nick Delatorre. This happened, I don't know when, but this just showed up on my feed. I'm gonna go ahead and play for you, and let's uh, let's take a listen to this interview. Scott Strickland with Zach Alphaverde and Nick Delatorre. So let me get this on here, and let me play this for you.
Is there anything you can comment regarding that and your happiness or desire to stay in Gainesville and be the athletic director here?
Yeah, I've got the best. This University of Florida is the best job in the country. Athletics, it's the best location. It's the best school. We've got an awesome fan base. I love being a Gator, and have no interest in working somewhere else at this time.
Okay, hang on, let me get that. Okay, so that's Scott Strickland, and he says, plain simple, I have no interest in wanting to go someplace else. But he doesn't deny even talking to them, so I don't know if he's left the window open, but he says right now he's not interested. And why would he?
Well, as my late father said, you always listen. You
Oh yeah,
always
yeah,
listen.
yeah.
So there you go. I'm sure he entertained it. Um,
Let me stop you. Let me stop you because let me tell you something that happened. If you recall, Texas had a lot of these recruits going to Texas A&M. Remember all this? They were
mhm.
going into the transfer portal. now they have a lot of people that are starting to leave because the NIL deals that they signed for not what they were. It's not what they were intended to be. I think they were getting a lot less money than what they were supposed to be getting, and now we're seeing a lot of players leave Texas A&M. I don't know. Have you noticed this over the course of the last few days?
I have not. I mean, I haven't been paying attention to it that much, other than being focused on, you know, I've really been focused on what Florida's doing, and then
Right, but I
to tell you the
understand.
truth, kind of dialed into basketball right now, both men's and women's. But
Yeah.
um, and that's the thing, man. There's no way you have. We have no idea how this thing works. No
No,
idea.
no, we don't. No, we don't.
All you have is hearsay and other things. I mean, I was told that, you know, certain schools offered Ricky Pearsall something else, and there were things that were promised that to other people. But I try not. I mean, it is not. It is so convoluted that I really do my. I mean, there's no way that I could actually feel comfortable speaking on it outside of a parent, the kid themselves, or the person that gave the money saying, like I said, when the Rashada thing came out, I got a text from somebody that I know, which I couldn't believe it. He said, I've given X amount to this recruiting class, more money than I make in a year. And he said, and I'm not giving any more. So, and it was a nice amount. And I was like, wow. And so
Was that to Jacob Rashada alone?
no. It was to the recruiting class as a whole.
Okay.
So whenever the bottom dropped out, the Rashada thing, this person was like, I ain't giving no more.
Yeah.
So and to me, the people that, I don't consider myself very good with money. I'm trying to get better. I spend a lot of money because you can't take it with you. But
I'm with you.
but at the same time, you never see the people that are good with money like to keep their money. And it's back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. The return on investment is so little. All you really do is get to see your team win. You might get to fly on the plane and things like that. You got that kind of money, you fly and do your own thing. So the return on investment is very little. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be, yeah. I mean, if you and if I'm a coach and I'm losing players because the NIL deal going awry, then that's just one more headache I got to deal with. And then, like, go back to your point, why am I dealing with this when I can go work with 53 grown adults who will fight, claw, tooth, and nail because that is how they put food on the table. Mm-hmm. So I got their undivided attention, Wednesday through Saturday. I got them. And they are football. I ain't got to worry about, I might have to worry about wife and girlfriend, but I ain't got to worry about them being eligible, going to class, this, that, and the third. If they don't show up to practice, I just cut them, I mean, and go get me somebody else. So, I mean, that lends itself to say, that's why those NFL jobs are attractive,
Yeah, I'm there with you. I'm there with you, and it just astounds me, that I don't think Scott Strickland leaves. I think if anything happens, SAS will probably have him let go. That's the only way you'll get rid of Scott Strickland. But you're right about this, and I think if SAS was really wanted to make a change, he would have done it by now. So, I mean, I don't see anything happening.
Well, I mean, there'd really be no reason to, and I'm sure, I mean, you as the president are not the supreme being. So, there's a board of trustees and,
right,
and
but
different things.
He
can make a recommendation, but you think about it, man, he got his own fish to fry. I mean, he came in. I mean, I think he's done a nice job of calming the waters for sure. And like I said, I've met him a couple times. Seemed like a nice guy. politics aside, seems like a good dude. I think he's a football guy, which you can always like. But
Oh yeah.
he got to fit. He got to make sure that the same thing, that the water comes on every time in the dorms, and all those things. And he was dealing with, like I said, when he first came in, some of that. And then there was the issue, because Florida is a diverse community, so you had the situation with Israel and some of that stuff, and he had to handle that. He just, there's a lot of things other than worrying about who AD and football coach is right now. You're responsible for 50,000 students, and one of the flagship university, really in the Southeast. So you just, that's a tall order.
We've seen it. We talked about Todd Golden a moment ago. Are you surprised by the slow start in the SEC for this team? I saw that game the other night.
The SEC is probably might be the best league in basketball, which they hadn't been that way in a long time. So you're looking at them. They're going to get their wins. They're 1-3 in conference right now, but they're going to get some wins. And basically they lost. The Kentucky game was big. That could have been, but they got to find a way to go on the road and steal a couple, and then you got to hold serve at home. And, I think in a league like this, you think it's 6th, 7th place, 8th place, 6th definitely gets you in the tournament, 7, 8, you're on the bubble. And, I think, if he can get that team into the NCAA tournament, I think that's where they are right now. They're not at the top, and things like that. But, the problem that they're going to have is they really don't have a great wing player, and they're going to struggle against other great wing players. So, like I said, they had Kentucky on the ropes, but they don't match up well with Ole Miss. They didn't match up well with Tennessee. So really, I guess I look at it this way: if you laid it out on paper, have they lost to a team they shouldn't have lost to?
Right.
No. Other than Wake Forest. They dropped that Wake Forest game, and they but outside of that, they pretty much been in most of the games. And, it's tough to win in this league now, man. It's like football. This league, because of the transfer portal, and it's some dudes in this league now, man. You're talking about you got Bruce Pearl, you got Bruce Beard, you got Rick Barnes, you got Nate Oates, you got
do not say him. Do not say the name.
What, Musselman?
No. Do not
Musselman.
say the name.
Oh, you got Coach Cal?
No.
Who?
No, do not. No, I don't want you to say it.
Oh yeah, and you got Mike White.
Shut up.
And you got Mike White. It's some good coaches in this league, man. Mike White can coach, man. I don't know why. Mike White can flat out coach, man. He can't.
You had to say
he's a good dude too, man. He's a really good dude. He's a good dude. Golden's a good dude too, but
oh yeah.
Mike White, and then you got Stackhouse. There's some dudes in this league, man. They got some. Buzz Peterson down in Texas A&M. There's some coaches in this league now. It is.
Said the name.
Oh yeah, Mike White.
Said the name.
Now he's that second tier, but Mike White can coach basketball, man. And he's a heck of a player too. A lot of people forget that, man. Mike White was a really good point guard for Ole Miss back in the day. So,
I don't care the way that he went to Florida, man. It was like, man.
Hey man, how many 20 win seasons did he have in a row?
At Florida?
Yeah. Didn't he win like 4? He had 4 20-win seasons in a row.
I don't know. I know people were pissed off at him big time.
Yeah, I don't think they know. I know.
It's like,
yeah.
what you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. Okay, number one, I'm gonna give you a mission here. Well, we're gonna come back the week before the Super Bowl. Okay, and I'm gonna ask you 2 very important things. Number one, analyze it, give me a prediction for the Gator season, and also something else too. And I'm gonna make this public right here now because between conversations between myself and a mutual friend of ours, you know, we hear the Animal Football Insider thinking about doing some things different, and we're thinking about changing the name of the show and things like that. So I want you to be thinking hard about what you think the show should be. And by the way, follow me on my Facebook page. If you have any suggestions, add them on, and I'll take them into consideration. And we might have a change in the name of the show for next season. We're thinking about doing that, but be thinking about that as we get ready to join you 2 weeks from no, is it what 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
2 weeks,
like that?
three. Well,
2 weeks.
they take a week off, so 3 weeks.
Okay, so can you join me then?
But man, I'll join you anytime, buddy.
All right. Well, I'm gonna
Yeah.
hold you to it. 3 weeks from today, Lauren Meadows will join me. We'll talk about the matchup for Super Bowl. We'll talk about what's happening with the Florida Gators. Give me your predictions for 23-24, and also your suggestions on what you think the show should be. I've kept you more than what I wanted to. Thank you so much for joining me. You are fantastic. And let me tell you something. That link that I gave you, you're welcome to join me anytime. You don't have to have an invitation.
All right.
No, seriously.
Yeah, I don't. Well, you let me. It's your show, man. You do a great job.
But thank you. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, anytime you want to join me and butt in and talk about something I'm talking about, join in. You're more than welcome to, my friend.
All right, boss.
Lauren, thank you so much, man. You're fantastic, and give my best to the other half.
I
Okay?
will. You do the same.
All right, man. Good to talk to you again, brother. Lauren Meadows joining me on this edition of Animal Football Insider. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. Well, I'm thinking about changing some things with the show, including the title of the show, doing some things different, branding myself a little bit, maybe talking about other things besides the Gators and stuff. In fact, we'll have news on that coming up in a couple of weeks. Now, before I get out of here, again, let me give you the rundown for this weekend's games. It begins Saturday. Packers at the 49ers. Wait a minute. No, that's the wrong one. Oh, is that the right one? Hang on. Hang on. Okay. Here we go. Saturday at 4:30. Houston will be at Baltimore. That's the AFC matchup. And the nightcap, it'll be the Packers at San Francisco. On that game will be on Fox. The early game that afternoon will be on ESPN ABC. And by the way, we don't know if there'll be a Peyton Manning cast, but I hope there is because those guys do an excellent job. Sunday, Bucs, Lions, 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central Time on NBC, followed by the Chiefs at the Bills in the conference championship game to be on the 28th. AFC is at 3 o'clock Eastern. NFC will be at 6:30 Eastern Time. And then 2 weeks later, Super Bowl, will be in Las Vegas on February 11th. So probably on the 8th, we'll have Lauren Meadows on to join me as well. Wow, I did not think that we'd be on for nearly 2 hours tonight, but I appreciate you all joining me for this edition of Insider. I want to thank Lauren Meadows for joining me as well. Had a great time. I want to thank all of you commenting from Tracy Forner, Bobby Skinner, Benton Taylor, who loved the show as well, and it's been fantastic. But I've taken more time than probably is what needed. By the way, USF won their ball game earlier tonight against a 10th ranked team in the country. Just saw that information a few minutes ago. So I think that is just awesome. They beat Memphis on the road. And Memphis, of course, is the 10th ranked team in the country. I think that's just fantastic. And congratulations to the Bulls. So that is just awesome. But I've taken more time than need to tonight. It's been great. I've had a lot of fun. I hope you guys have had a lot of fun too. We'll be back next week for another edition of Animal Football Insider. Hopefully talk about the Buccaneers going to the NFC Championship game. Until then, you guys take it easy. God bless. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And as I always like to say, if you're not a Gator, you're primed to be Gator bait. Good night, everybody. And as I always like to say, go Gators and go Bucs right behind me right here. Y'all make it a great night. God bless and be safe.
Thank you for watching Animal Football Insider. Be sure to join us every Thursday night here on Facebook Live.